Right, well, we'll just give it a couple of seconds to wait for people to join in, but welcome to this. We've worked out the 14th online tasting that we've been doing. It started all the way back when 2 years ago. So this evening, what we're focusing on is our 100% Islay. And in his own words, we've wheeled out the old man for this one. So he's going to be leading the tasting this evening. Those of you who got the pack, we will be tasting them in the order that they were put into the pack. So we've got the 100% Islay new make, then the second edition, fourth edition, and then finishing with the 11th edition, which was released only yesterday. If you don't have a pack, don't worry. Do pour yourself a dram and join in and ask any questions. This evening is not only about us talking to you about the 100% Islay, but you asking questions about the distillery production or anything that you like about the distillery. But I'll now hand you over to my father, who will kick you off with the new make.
Well, before I kick you off with a new make, I'll just look. Hello, everybody. It's great to be going live again, and hopefully lots of you have joined in and going to send in lots of questions. Look, the 100% Islay was really all about Kilchoman and why we set up Kilchoman and being able to showcase the fact that we actually grow the barley and take it right the way through the production process to eventually bottling it. It's something that I'm hugely proud of that we've achieved, and certainly the 100% Islay is really our flagship expression that we're very, very proud of. And now we're getting some age into some of our 100%, and the 11th edition that we've just released yesterday really showcases the additional age that has had. But it's great to be able to taste right the way through from the new make through the second and fourth edition up to the 11th edition. And it seems a long time ago that we released the first edition in 2011 of the 100% Islay. And I think being able to be in complete control of the whole process from growing the barley and now we're experimenting with different barley varieties to see what effect that has on the spirit character. And in the last 3 or 4 years, we've sown a different variety alongside the mainstay that we've sown Concerto for the last 6 or 7 years, and before that we sowed Publican, and then before that it was Optic, and then in the last 3 or 4 years we've sown another variety alongside the Concerto in the same field, just to see the difference in terms of production. We're more interested to see how it performs in production. I really, that's what I believe. That's what's important for us, and obviously, as a farmer, you're interested about the yields and the size of the barley heads and so on and so forth. But it's been quite interesting to do that, and in the last few years we've put them through the stills and tasted them alongside each other, and they certainly show a different character, the different barley varieties. And I think it's great to be able to do all these different experiments and see what works. We're doing different yeast varieties and all those sorts of things in a small way. It helps us showcase Kilchoman in a different light. But to me, I mean, just to give you an idea, this year, for instance, on Islay, we've had this most fantastic weather on Islay this summer. Not great for distilling. We've had to slow down a little bit because just to preserve our water, but it's been a great year for our harvest. And it's the first year since we started just producing our own barley back in 2005. It's the first year we managed to get onto the fields and get it all combined in 4 or 5 days. Whereas before, we always get started more towards the end of August, but we've been still at it into October, just because the weather hasn't allowed us to finish it off in one go. So we've been absolutely thrilled with this year's harvest. It's one of the best ones we've combined, and you know, the yields have been pretty good, and we look forward to putting it through production in the new year. So what I'll do now is we'll get on and start tasting these the samples that we sent around, and hopefully a lot of you have got those. If you haven't, hopefully you can either got a bottle of 100% Islay of one of the editions, or you're just have got a dram in front of you and are joining in. But I think it's great to be able to just see how it develops through the ages. And tasting our new spirit is the first part of it, really. And when I nose the 100% Islay new make, it has a more floral character. It's very clean. It's a slight malty tone to it, and on the back of the those you just get this very soft integrated peat smoke. We don't peat it very much. We peat it for about 10-12 hours, and that gives us between 10 and 20 parts per million of phenols. We never sort of get it exactly at where we want it, but it's really all about 10 hours, and hopefully the guys are looking after it in a way that gives us that average around 15 to 20 parts per million of phenols. And it has this wonderful sort of lemon zesty character, but above all, it's clean and it's fresh, and it doesn't have any particular off notes attached to it, which for us was was very important, because it meant that hopefully we could put it in a good quality wood and release it at a relatively young age, and it would be well received. So the average strength of our new make, I believe this is from the spirit receiver, so it'll be 63.5%. This is what we cask all our spirit at. But at that strength, you don't get a lot of alcohol burn. You don't get a lot of spirit cat. Well, you do get spirit cat, obviously, but it's soft, it's fruity, and it's fresh. And I think, from my point of view, that was really important for us to be able to achieve that character of spirit.
And when you talk about oh, where's the
Don't know. You probably.
Is it me?
I don't know. I can't hear it.
Hopefully, no one else can hear it. When you talk about the new make spirit and comparing it to the 100%, the Port Ellen malt, which goes into all the other expressions, does the Port Ellen malt differ massively, or is it still looking for the same cleanliness as well?
It differs. It definitely differs. I would say the difference is it's a creamier, fuller flavour, the Port Ellen malt, and it has obviously a higher peating level, around 50 parts per million phenols, and you do get maybe a little bit more depth in the style of spirit, but still clean and fresh, still with those citrus notes, but it certainly has a little bit more depth of character, I would say, than the 100% Islay, and which is more floral and in character completely, which is actually just what we wanted. We wanted to have two different styles, and certainly the 100% Islay has a much more delicate character attached to it than the Port Ellen malt that we buy from Diageo maltings. And obviously we don't produce a huge amount of our own, because we're very keen to make sure that we're only growing the barley on our farm, and we have about 400 acres. Only probably about 200 of those we can use for barley production. The idea is to bring more of those fields back into production in terms of barley, and we have a drainage program where we can bring some of these fields back into production in the next few years, because what we want to do is be able to share more of the 100% Islay around the world with our customers than we're able to do at the moment. So at the moment, I would say that we're about 20% of production is from our own barley that we grow on the farm, and we're looking to increase that slightly back up to 25% over the next 3 or 4 years, and we're extending our malt floor and hopefully being able to process a bit more.
Hopefully the echo isn't too bad. I'm not sure where it's come from, but I think it's my end, so apologies for that. Also with the 100% Islay, when it comes to cask maturation and cask selection, that stage of things, noticed a lot of the early ones all went into bourbon cask. Was that always the plan, or were you tempted to use some sherry cask in the early days as well?
Well, we did use a few sherry casks, but it was always thought mainly that we mature in bourbon for the 100% Islay. Why did I decide to do that? No real reason other than I thought it would work a lot better for this light, delicate character of spirit. But we have filled a few sherry casks, not that many, and the 11th edition obviously had some, the 8th and the 10th also. and it's something that I made that decision. We fill mainly into bourbon anyway. Through the distillery character shines through with bourbon maturation. Although I think a lot of people would say that our spirit character lends itself to all sorts of different cask types, and we've obviously showcased that with various releases we've done. But from my point of view, the bourbons are superb. They work really well, and I thought it would, long-term maturation, it would work with 100% Islay best. So the first 4 or 5 or even 6 releases that we did of 100% Islay were all in bourbon barrels, first or refill, and then we tweaked it slightly over I think the 8th and the 10th, and now the 11th. We've added a little bit of sherry, and it's added a little a different dimension to the style of 100% Islay. And that's all about just showcasing it in a different format. But the bourbons work really well, and I think when you start with spirit character that we have, and then put it into first fill bourbons, and the second edition, which is the second release that we're going to try now, is filled into bourbon mainly first, and a few refill casks, and it's just literally just over 3 years of age. So, in terms of age, that's very, very young, and it's very delicate. When I nose that, it's very light in colour, 3 years maturation in first fill bourbons. But for my mind, it's already developed a character. It's very light, floral notes, yes, it's vibrant and it's youthful, but it's already forming a character for its own. When you nose that blind, you don't pick up a lot of maritime salty character. There isn't a lot of that. And on the palate, it's a very, very delicate dram. But I always pick up on all Kilchoman this sort of matured in bourbon, this sort of citrus lemon note that comes through and stays. And on the back of the palate, this definitely picks up some of that maritime saltiness. But it's very soft and integrated. And that actually is the same with all our releases. Although it's Islay style, it tends to be sort of sweet and floral, and not sort of pungent style of West Coast maritime character.
Yeah, it's got that amazing sweetness to it, and it's something that always comes back to me when I taste the 100% Islay, is the sweetness, especially, and that floral quality on the nose. 50% ABV from the first edition we did, and has been always. Was that a conscious decision? Was that to do with the tasting profile, or just strength you like?
I think all our whiskies can take it. And I think I just decided that with the 100% Islay, we to release it that slightly higher strength, to showcase it in a different light. And I'm always a great believer that if I had my way, we'd release everything at cask strength and let everybody decide how much water they wanted to add. But that isn't possible with the amount of whiskey you want to release and the price point maybe that you want to release it at. So it take the 50%. You don't, when you nose and taste this, even with the spirit at 63.5, your head's not knocked off. And at 50%, maybe a few drops of water. I don't necessarily need much water with this, and there's no sort of alcohol burn there at all. It's soft and it's sweet. And at 3 years of age, you could argue, a little bit more age would help. But I think what we were looking to do is showcase something at a young age, and then everyone can see the development as it goes through its maturation. And I think, when we get to taste the 11th edition, I think it'll be clear that the added maturation just gives it a bit more depth of character. But, the second edition, I think worked well. I mean, people were very complimentary about it at the time, and we were delighted when we released it. And I think the thing is, for me, being able to showcase a single farm distillery is what the 100% Islay is all about, and taking whiskey back to its roots and being able to control every aspect of production is something that we really love doing at Kilchoman. And Islay Heads, the general manager, he's a frustrated farmer, really, just loves getting involved in all this aspect of Kilchoman and the distillery, and getting involved in the barley we sow and what happens through the whole of the farming cycle. And it's great to be able to control that, decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and then malting it ourselves is all part of that process.
So there's a few questions. Oh, sorry. Okay, it's very bad. A few questions coming in here now. So do keep coming in about stock profile and keeping stock in the warehouse. How do you juggle making sure that there is enough older stock so we can give older expressions, like the 11th edition's got some older bottlings in it? Is that a big juggling act? Is it quite tempting to, as it's such a popular release, to bottle slightly more? I can probably answer this as well, but is it tough?
I think it's a juggling act for everybody in the industry, because you've got to have a crystal ball and gaze through that and know what's going to happen in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And that's impossible. And that's why, as an industry, we never get that right. And we at Kilchoman, I mean, in hindsight, we would have made more whiskey at the start, but we didn't, and for very good reason we didn't. And we decided that we'd build up slowly, produce a bit, see how well it was received, and then carry on that journey. And we've been absolutely thrilled with the take up for Kilchoman and what people have enjoyed. We do have stock, and we're definitely making sure that we have stock of in our warehouse that we can release older releases of Kilchoman, and we'll continue to do that. We've been producing more every year since we started in 2005 when we only filled 7 casks. 2006 we filled 50,000 litres of alcohol, and every year since then we've increased production because we've been confident that demand is there. And we've invested heavily. Yes, I think the question being, it is very difficult to get that right, and making sure that you've got lots and lots of stock. We have stock, but we don't have lots and lots and lots of stock. But we'll make sure that we're going to be releasing older releases of 100% Islay, and certainly of our other releases, that we can share those with people going forward. And that's what we do with our limited releases.
And I think that's why there's always been a limited edition bottling, 12,000 bottles of it to protect those stocks especially. But have you got plans to do a sort of cask strength or a slightly special 100% Islay in the future, or is it something that?
No, definitely. I think what we've been doing over the first year in 2011, when we released the first one, we've done 12,000 bottles with every release we've done, and that's about retaining stock for future bottlings. But I'm a great fan of cask strength, and we've done various cask strength releases, and we'll definitely do something with 100% Islay at cask strength, because I think everyone will be delighted with it. They have been really pleased with our Maccabee cask strength, and we did an original cask strength, a limited release back in 2014, and it was very, very popular. I get it. People who enjoy whiskey enjoy those cask strengths, and we'll definitely do those over the coming years.
For those of you, I've just added a few drops of water to the second edition there, and you get this amazing amount of creaminess that's come off it, even at that relatively young age, well, very young age of 3 years. And hopefully what you're going to see through this tasting this evening is the sort of the new make developing through the cask, and the cask really starting to come in, especially when we get into the 11th edition. But that little bit of water really does help open up for me. And don't be afraid to add a few drops of water at 50%. But yeah, no, because I can't remember the last time I actually tasted the second edition. It's always nice to go back and taste these ones, because one of the main things that when we started Kilchoman, people loved these young, vibrant whiskies we're doing, and now we're getting a little bit more age. It's nice to go back and see how it's all developed from back in 2012 when we released this. So yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, and I think actually it's fun to these two now, the second and fourth editions. There's a couple of years difference in age profile, maybe 4 and 5 year old for the fourth edition. Again, in the same cask profile. Mainly first fill, and it's something that we do at Kilchoman. We've mainly filled first fill casks to get all that impact early on. And refills, we do fill a number of refills, but on the whole, if we're filling mainly first fill, which you're getting all that character coming through at an earlier age. And I think when you nose and taste these two alongside each other, there is that that's difference. The second edition, it just doesn't quite have the same maybe depth, and then with the fourth edition, you're getting more of that character coming through from the cask. And I'm certainly you may be getting a little sort of maybe a little bit of caramel character coming through from the bourbon barrels. It's a little bit fuller on the nose, more prominent sort of citrus lemon notes, and I think someone flashed up sort of sherbet, and I think that's actually spot on. There is a bit of that sherbet character on the nose on both of these. Color wise, I'm in the dark here actually, so I can't really tell. But
slightly dark, a little bit more depth.
It's a little bit more depth, but certainly on the nose, I get a lot more depth of character and more of that, maybe a little bit more maritime character on the palate, on the nose.
Mm.
And on the palate, you just get a little bit more fullness, a bit more richness, a little bit more of those lemon citrus, and maybe that caramel butterscotch character as well. But it's very lightly peated and integrated. But I do, on the back of the palate, always pick up that slight saltiness and maritime character. But there's not. It's very, very light on the peat character. But that's just how I like the 100% Islay. It's sort of floral. It's fruity. It's zesty. It's full of sort of freshness.
No, I almost get a little bit more saltiness now with the fourth edition. A little bit more of that saltiness coming through, but a lot more almost oil on the inside of the cheeks, where it's just got a little bit more body to it. But no, it is. I actually found a bottle at home of the fourth edition that I didn't know I had, which was
very good.
Quite nice to dig out. One question that has come in is someone asking about. No, not the one I wanted, but was the 100% Islay and SDR. Due to the amount of 100% Islay spirit that we produce, would you consider putting some into different casks apart from the bourbon and sherry? Or
I suppose that's a very good question, and we haven't tended to do that to date. We've put. I think I've just been protecting it in bourbon and a little bit of sherry, and I haven't really experimented with other cask types, and I've rather tended to do that with our Port Ellen malt, where we've got more of it, and I've been protecting what we have for the 100% Islay. But there's no reason why we couldn't fill a few different other different cask types. We do all these single casks, and it's something that we really love doing and showcasing Kilchoman as a single cask at cask strength. But we've done one or two of the 100% Islay as single cask, and that's really about protecting our stocks and making sure we can do sort of proper releases. And hopefully, we over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, we'll be able to maybe release a little bit more of the 100% Islay than these 12,000 bottles, which we've stuck to rigidly. But it's all about making sure that we have enough stock. I think, everybody knows that when we first started Kilchoman and we put in the first kiln and we had a fire in 2000, very early after we'd started, and that put us back a bit. There's all sorts of rumours flying around about how that fire started. I assure you, it was started because we loaded it up. We wanted to go back and watch a very important rugby international between England and Scotland, I believe. And when we came back, the kiln had caught fire, which was meant that we had a whole year where we didn't produce any of our own from our own barley. So 2006, we had no Kilchoman. We were out of production for a year, and we fixed the kiln. Fortunately, it didn't stop us from carrying on producing. Following day we were carrying on producing from Port Ellen malt, but sadly has put us back in terms of producing from our own barley. But those were the days when we actually used anthracite and coke, which is lethal when it comes to drying barley, because you either have it too hot or too cold, and of course we needed to heat it up when we went off to watch the rugby, and that was the wrong thing to do. But I think we will maybe experiment in the future, and the SDR casks probably would work really, really well with 100% Islay, because it will give that sort of summer fruit character and floral note, and it'll be interesting to see. So we will hopefully be able to do a few more experiments in the future.
And now we've got the two still houses at Kilchoman. Those of you who aren't aware, we actually put in a new still house. So we've got the original still house and now the new one next to it with identical stills. With the new one that's doing the with 100% Islay, is there any variance now going through the new side, or is it still?
No, I think it's fortunately it's very similar, and now we keep all the 100% Islay through the new still house, and we can now experiment a little bit more. We can keep our low wines and faints completely separate, which wasn't the case in the past, and you know, when we ran the stills in the new side for the first time, you know, we tasted the two spirits from the old side and the new side alongside each other, and you could detect a slight difference. But that slight difference is narrowed right down as we've run the stills for a lot longer now. We've been at it now for about a couple of years. You know, 2019, the new still house was completed, and it's more up to date. It's more efficient. So we're now bringing the old still house up to date because you know, in the old still house we had steam coils, and in the new still house we got radiators, and obviously it's much more efficient with radiators. You heat up the liquid a lot quicker, and the vapors rise up the larnam. So it's all these things that we're looking at just to be more efficient, but we're delighted with the new still house. It's working really well, and the yields that we're getting from it are excellent, and you know, it's now working as well as I wanted it to work, and it's great that we've got everything in the way it's working now is how we wanted it, and now we're going to full production. We're doing 12-hour shifts now, 24/7, to try and claw back some of the production that we've missed out on in the last 2 months, where we've had to just cut back a little bit to preserve our water supply. We've never had to stop, and we've never had a problem, but we just needed to cut back on production. So next week, well, actually we just started next week. The guys will be in for 12-hour shifts, but they actually enjoy it. Every 3 weeks they get 7 days off. So why wouldn't you enjoy that?
And the total production now? Where is that this year?
Sorry, the what? The
total production.
Total production this year will be around 400,000 litres of alcohol. So that'll be, last year was about 365. So we'll get to about 400 this year, which will be great.
And a question here about age statements. Would you consider doing an age statement 100% Islay, or in general for the core range at all?
I think that's open for debate. The age statements. At the moment, we're not. Certainly for our core range, Macabre and Sane, still relatively young, 4 or 5 years of age, and to be honest, they're not going to move a lot from that age profile for 2 or 3 years. But for our older stuff, the limited releases, we're certainly talking more about the age profile, but not necessarily putting the age on the label itself. But we're definitely telling people more about the age profile of our whiskies.
You mentioned there about the steam coils in the original still house, and then the radiators in the new. Someone just asked for a little bit more on how they work and how they differ when it comes to distillation. Yeah,
I mean, I think it doesn't sort of vary the distillation. It means that using more oil to get them onto spirit. So maybe in the new side, the radiator goes straight down in the middle and is raised a bit, where the coils are at the base of the stills, and just go around in 2 coils. So they heat from the bottom up, whereas the radiator will heat the whole of the bowl of the stills. So they just it's just more about efficiency, using fuel, and they come onto spirit a bit quicker. And I think in time we'll probably change the coils for radiators, just to bring everything up to the same speed.
And when the whole idea for Kilchoman, going back now to the early days, was the idea to do full-scale production of our own barley and try and do it all in-house? Was that your original plan, or?
Yeah, my original plan back in 2001, 2002 was, I always felt that if we were going to build a distillery, we needed a point of difference, a unique selling point. What was the point in building a distillery like every other distillery in Scotland? You needed to be a little different. So it was always my intention to build on a farm and grow the barley. And right from the outset, it was, we'll grow all our barley, do the whole production on site. But I soon realized that wasn't really going to be very feasible. And in fact, we couldn't ever grow enough barley on the farm. And yes, you could argue you could buy it from other farmers on the island, but I was keen to stick with the sort of chateau bottled distillery. I'm from the wine trade originally, and I felt that with chateau bottled wine, it's all grown on the chateau and it's bottled on the chateau, and I was looking to do that. But it was clear right from the outset that we weren't going to be able to do our whole production on site. So I settled for the fact that we would have a percentage from our own barley, and that we buy in commercial malt from the commercial maltings here on Islay.
And growing the barley on Islay, there are obviously clear difficulties with that. Anyone who's been to Islay will know that the weather that we get there. But when it comes to yields, and how it performs, is it now becoming a little bit more level, or has it still got that sort of 20 litres per tonne plus difference?
No, when I said I wasn't bothered about yields when we're producing our own. I think everybody told me you must be joking to grow barley, good commercial barley on Islay for malting. But it wasn't about that for me. It was about actually showing that we could produce barley to produce a very good single malt whiskey, and we've achieved that. Now, yields are obviously important, of course they are, because the cost of production escalate if you can't get those back down. And yes, I had a huge amount of help from the guys at Beaumont and Lefroy, in malting terms and what to do and how to look after your malt. But really, the only way of doing it is doing it practically yourselves. And we've learned a huge amount over the last sort of 10 years, 11 years that we've been doing it. And we got better and better at it. And, but when we first started, we didn't dry it down properly across the whole bed. And, maybe we didn't get it germinating as well as we should have done. And then when you don't dry it down uniformly on the kiln floor, you put it through the mill and you squash the grains instead of cracking them open. And you're wasting your time. So, look, we've learned a huge amount. And now, with the new kiln that we put in the last 4 years, we're getting great results. We're up at sort of, we don't mind telling people it's slightly less than Port Ellen maltings, but we're about 380, 385. We've achieved 385 litres of alcohol per tonne of malt. But on average, it is lower than from the Port Ellen malt. But that's not why we're doing it. At the end of the day, if you buy from commercial maltings, you're going to get better yields and a better quality of malt. But for people to say you can't grow good malting barley on Islay, that's rubbish. We're doing it. We've achieved it, and the whiskies that we're releasing have been well received. And Brooke Laddie get a number of farmers to grow barley on Islay, and they're achieving great results as well. So we're doing it. No, the weather conditions can be pretty challenging. No one would deny that. And you'd much rather grow it on the east coast of Scotland than on the west coast of Scotland. But we're achieving great results. And this year, we're absolutely thrilled. Normally, it's an absolute nightmare because it looks great in August and it's ripening beautifully. And we are get the combine out. And then a day after we start, the heavens open and it rains for the next 3 weeks. So, yeah, it's challenging, but we'll continue to do it. And, last year was a challenge because, we didn't get it off the fields and the geese ate it all. So if it's not the weather, it's the geese.
Yeah. So, and I noticed you weren't allowed to drive the combine this year. So is that why it's bumper harvest?
Well, I did tell Andrew that it was just like mowing the grass. I couldn't understand what the complication was. But once I climbed up into the cab last year and had a go, it's quite challenging. It's quite challenging. And I thought this year, the weather was so good, I wasn't really going to get in his way. Andrew just wanted to get on and get it done. So I stood back and let him get on with it. And it worked. No, I'll stay out, but I'd like to have another go. Sure.
Now we've got with the new new kiln malt floor. Is there the option to tweak the peating level, maybe go slightly higher or go lower at any point? Is that something that you've got in mind for the future as well?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So whereas we have this sort of standard 10-hour peating to give us a sort of 15 to 20 parts per million phenols, we've done unpeated, and we've done a number of months of unpeated, and that will be released in the future. And now we're going to do more heavily peated because the guys are on site, and we can light the fire and keep it going for a lot longer. So we will do those sorts of experiments because we're able to do that now because the guys are on site. Before, when we first started, we were only on site for 10, 12 hours. So that was the most we went for. And actually, it was about sort of having a different peating level to the Port Ellen malt that we buy from the maltings, where we're much higher peating level. So yes, we have done different. We've done unpeated for sure, and we'll be releasing that in the next 3 or 4 years.
I know the unpeated, the single cast that we've done on unpeated have been very, very popular. So I know there'll be lots of people who'll be excited about tasting a release of unpeated. But no, I think that now that the 4th edition's developed a bit more in the glass, that creaminess again is really, really coming out. And going back to the slightly, I'd still go back to that new make, and it's the sweetness is unbelievable that's coming out of the glass now. And yeah, I think in the early days, Jim Swan was key, wasn't he, to the spirit quality, because of your background in independent bottling and cask management. Jim was the one that really did help put the spirit in that place, didn't he?
Yeah, no, I mean, Jim held my hand. I mean, I had no experience with production, and I only had to tell him, the style of spirit I wanted, and he went away and designed the distillery in a way that would achieve that, and he got it spot on, absolutely spot on, and he's helped a huge number of other distilleries to achieve similar results, and I can't give him enough praise for what he's done for Kilchoman and the rest of the industry in terms of new distilleries, because he's been a source of great inspiration to many people who've started distilleries, and he certainly was to us, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without him, and clearly, cask maturation was one of his big things, and he certainly pointed me in the right direction in terms of maturation and making sure we didn't cut any corners with our maturation. He gave me all the contacts I needed, and we continue to buy from the same contacts that he gave me back in those days. All casks from Buffalo Trace in Bourbon, and all our sherry casks from Miguel Martin in Seville in Spain, and he put me in touch with other cooperages for all our experimental casks, and I have a huge amount of pride in the fact that I work with someone who was such an amazing person in the industry, and has done a fantastic job for the new distilleries that are now coming to the fore.
And for those who haven't been lucky enough to be involved in cask selection and picking the cask for a release, does that something that starts a year in advance for the release, or is that something that Robin, the production manager, will go through and mark some casks up, or how do you go about picking those casks, and what do you look for?
We work pretty close together on that. I mean, Robin's now been, he's probably listening. I mean, I think Robin started in 2010 with us, and he became the manager in 2015, and he's got a lot more experience in terms of selection of casks. He's got an amazing memory for where every cask is in the place. It's extraordinary. I can ask him, where a certain cask is. He knows exactly where it is. Look, I mean, we start this process. We'll certainly go and try some cask samples and note which ones we're looking for a certain release, and then we're certainly looking at a number of different casks, different releases that we're doing, and just keeping an eye on them as we go through the year. But something that everyone says, it's what a job, what a fantastic job. It is a great job, and I think you get to know your own whiskies and how they're developing, and how long you have to leave them in terms of maturation and where you want them to go before you're going to release them. I think what I would say is that using the character and quality of spirit that we've got, and then making sure you put it into good wood, it makes our job a lot easier in terms of selection. Bourbon casks are much easier to work with, whereas maybe sherry casks are a bit trickier, and they can always be a little different. But we are fortunate the spirit character and the quality of our wood, and it goes for a lot of distilleries now. The quality of wood that's being used throughout the industry has got better and better, and we're all now filling into a far better wood. In other words, first fill or refill, and certainly we only use first fill and refill them once again, and then we sell them back into the industry. I think we feel that our whiskies are going to be, at their peak between maybe 8 and 15 years. Not necessarily a lot older than that, but who knows when we get there. I think if you want all the sort of Islay characters still to be shining through, then you don't want them to be too old. And certainly, for the feedback we've been getting, our young whiskies tend to show themselves off being slightly older, and all that sort of fruity sweetness and floral note. We want the peat and smoke and character still to be there, and maybe after 15, 20 years, it's not quite going to be there so much, and the wood, it starts to take over.
Is that when you play with the refill, the fresh and refill casks to try and preserve that distillery character? Is that when that?
Yeah. I mean, refills you can take out a bit further, and certainly we have filled some second fill casks, but very, very few, so that we can take some further out in terms of maturation. But I think the bulk of whiskies, I don't really see them. We have got some 14 and 15-year-old single casks that, and certainly those are absolutely divine. They come to fruition. You would say they're at their peak, and I wouldn't want to see them being necessarily mature for a lot longer. And age isn't everything in this world. Certainly, you end up paying a lot more money for something as it gets older, but it doesn't always mean that it's going to be a better dram.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we should move on to the 11th edition, which is the latest of the 100% Isleys we released. This was actually released yesterday. Again, 12,000 bottles. And this was from harvest from 2007, 2009, 10, and 11. So, I mean, and this also has got sherry in it. I believe it's 7 sherry casks and 26 bourbon barrels that went into it. And that sherry immediately for me comes out on the nose. It's far softer altogether style, far more depth of character as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sherry works really well with our 100% Islay. I think we did it with our 8th edition, which was about just over 6 years of age, and then we did it with our 10th, but a lot less sherry influence. So the 8th was 6% bourbon and 40% sherry, and the 11th edition is the same, but it's got another 3 years of maturation, and I think that shows through. And it just has that spicy sort of character, sort of cooked fruits character, and that's the sherry influence, and the colour, it gives it away straight away. And over 9 years of age, I really think this is starting to come to the party in terms of maturation. And I like the sherry influence in the 100% Islay. It gives it a little bit more weight, a little bit more spicy richness, and you still get those citrus and lemon notes there in the background. But the sherry at 40% vatting of sherry is giving quite a lot of big sherry notes coming through, but not too much. And I think it's got a great balance between the bourbon influence and the Oloroso sherry.
Is there a slight concern, we go back to that light style of spirit that we tasted earlier on in the tasting, maturing that in a big Oloroso sherry, but is there a slight concern that you might lose that freshness? Is that something that's got to be managed quite carefully?
I don't necessarily think so. I think there is a different influence from sherry. It gives it a bit more weight, it gives it more sweetness, and some would argue it sort of maybe masks some of the distillery characteristics. But I think it's worked wonderfully well with this, and it was something that we've always done a little bit of sherry with our 100% Islay, not very much. And when I when Robin and I looked at these casks in the warehouse, when we were choosing what we're going to do for the 11th edition 100% Islay, these shone out, these sherry casks, and that's why we selected them and said, Christ, those are going to work well. And we did various experimental vatting to see what would work best, and we went for 40%, which is a reasonable chunk of sherry influence, but we believe it's worked and that it's come through beautifully well, and the balance is there. I don't think it takes away the influence of the style of 100% Islay. I still think it works well. And when you compare this alongside the Port Ellen malt, and we did a 60%, 40% batting, the difference is striking, actually. Yeah. This has a more delicate style, delicate character, and I don't believe the sherry has got too much influence.
I think you definitely, from me personally, you go from the early editions where you've got the fresh fruits, the green fruits. Now you've gone into slightly more cooked fruits, a little bit more spice, as you say, and that development it's great to be able to taste them in a sort of vertical tasting like this, to see the cask come in.
And, you get much more mouthfeel, and it fills the mouth, and there's a little bit longer lingering aftertaste. It lasts a lot longer. And again, I always the sort of West Coast character, the sort of maritime saltiness comes through on the back of the palate. It's still there, and I think I'm absolutely thrilled with how this has worked, this 11th edition. Yes, it's different from the bourbon cask maturation that we've tended to go for and have done, 7 releases, I think it was, before we did any sherry influence. But I think it's worked, and we'll continue to fill sherry casks, but we're predominantly fill bourbons. And as someone asked earlier, will we fill other cask types? No, we haven't, but we certainly will look at that going forward. But at 50%, a little bit of water always opens it up. There's no doubt about that, and just changes the character slightly. But it's extraordinary how approachable this is at the 50%, and you don't feel you're being swamped by alcohol or alcohol burn. It's so integrated. It's so soft. It's so fruity, and I think it showcases the style of 100% Islay really well.
No, I think that's another thing, is that 50% ABV through the 3 whiskies that we've had, and of course the higher new make, really is so approachable on the palate. There's none of that, as you said, which is testament to the new make that the guys in the Stillhouse are producing.
And I think it all starts with the new make, and the guys do a fantastic job in the Stillhouse in making sure that we have this consistent character of spirit coming through day after day.
It's lovely to be able to taste these older expressions. And I will say just now quickly that if we have missed any questions on Facebook, someone will get back in touch with you if you missed them. YouTube, if we have missed the questions, they all disappear, sadly. So do email in info@kilchomandistillery.com, and someone will be able to get back to you and answer all those questions, because it's quite hard to keep up with them at some stages. But if you've got any more questions, now's the time to get them in. Lots of people very, very pleased with the 100% Islay 11th edition. So that they're giving you a pat on the back there, so you should be quite pleased with yourself there, I think. Will 100% Islay that is in bourbon cask qualify as a kosher approved CRC list in the past?
I'm not sure what I think I've been asked this before. I'm never sure quite what wood you can use to make a single malt kosher. But someone will hopefully tell me.
Yeah, we will, Brian. We will. If you send that message to our Facebook group, we'll get back in touch with you and just make sure that we don't say anything wrong there. So we'll get back in touch with you on that one. But just to say that we've got another tasting coming up on the 21st of October. We're doing our Comrake tasting, and those of you who aren't aware, Comrake is, we've got over 100 bars worldwide that are Kilchoman Comrakes, and these are bars that have access to special bottlings. and we'll be tasting through the exclusive bottlings that we've done for them. So there's batch 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's a great opportunity to try whiskey that's not readily available unless you go into these bars. And those packs are now on sale on the website. And again, we'll be doing a tasting similar to this, where we'll be going through them and telling you a little bit more about the Comrake and everything that you get to taste there. And they're bottlings that are selected by my dad and Robin again. And they try and do something a little bit more exclusive, a little bit different to the general releases. So a great chance to try some slightly different Kilchomans there. But I think we're probably nearly about done there. So thank you very much for tuning in. And yeah, it's been nice to see you, Dad.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll meet up soon.
Yeah. No. But if we have missed any questions, as I said, do send them into the distillery and someone will get back in touch with you. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to seeing some of your whiskey shows now that are starting up. I know that we're getting a bit more busy with these shows, so hopefully we'll catch up with you more in person soon.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks very much for joining. It's been great to chat, and enjoy the 11th edition. If you can get your hands on a bottle, I'm sure you can. And if you can't, then come back to us and hopefully we can point you in the right direction. Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay.